Well, hello and welcome back to the Prison Officer Podcast. Today I've got a good friend of mine. We've been trying to plan this for a little bit, but I'm glad we finally got to do this. Joe and I have been working together for a long time. I'm going to introduce him here with just kind of tell you a little bit about this amazing person. Joe Buice is a lifelong martial artist with over 40 years of training across multiple disciplines and at master level ranks, including Renshi in Goshin Jitsu. So he may have to correct me on that here in a minute. He's a retired sheriff's office lieutenant with an extensive background in corrections, a former commander of the elite law enforcement units there. He now serves as Pepperball's director of implementation. He teaches advanced tactics to leading agencies nationwide. And I'm going to embarrass him here because when I first met Joe and got to work with him, I guess it's been 4 or 5 years now, I got to watch him teach defensive tactics, and I was blown away. He's probably the best defensive tactics instructor I've ever watched, and I've been wanting to talk to him about how he teaches and what he thinks about defensive tactics, in law enforcement and corrections. So, welcome to the podcast, Joe. I'm so happy to have you here.
Wow, thank you very much. I don't know if I can recover from that. That was very good, Mike. I appreciate it.
I didn't even have to make any of it up.
No, no, at least not the majority, right? That's
Right.
good. That's
Yeah.
awesome. No, that's really good. I appreciate it. And we have been trying to get together with this for a while, and both of us busy schedules and
Oh,
everything
yeah.
else. But yeah, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. I start these conversations the same. I think everybody looks forward to it. Let's learn a little bit about you. Tell me where you grew up and how that was.
Sure. I grew up in Georgia, so that's my home state. Uh, I said that I spent the majority of my life around Lake Lanier, and
Excuse me. Hold on.
yeah,
That went down the wrong hole. Hmm. Okay. So tell me about where you grew up, Joe.
yeah, I grew up in Georgia, so Georgia's the home state. I always claim, so they say, where are you from? North Georgia mountains, the Forsyth County, Beaufort area, really around Lake Lanier. So I grew
Okay.
up there, and I moved to Gwinnett after right about graduation, right about in 89, 90, somewhere in there.
Right. And what did you do in school? I mean, were you in sports? Were you
I was in trouble some, but no, I
troublesome?
tried I
I
tried to stay
resemble
out
that
of
remark.
trouble, but no, I really that's where I started martial arts. I actually
Okay.
started at a pretty young age. Uh, didn't really I really wanted to do a lot more with sports at the time. Growing up, I was more interested in getting a part-time job, trying to make a living, trying to do something for myself, and not really a career, but I guess we all come from different walks of life, and I grew up, I was thinking, how am I going to make the next step? So martial arts seemed to be something. I found a school, started training with a good friend of mine, and it led into more of a lifestyle or a passion. And I granted, I don't do it as much as I used to now, but
Right.
there was a time where every day I was out just obsessing on something, some new technique, or trying to learn something new.
Well, we're about the same age, so tell me if I'm wrong. But I was heavily influenced. Took some classes back then. Steven Seagal, Jean Claude Van Damme. I mean, we had the martial art movies back during that time, didn't we?
Oh, we had them. They were all out. You had Jackie Chan, you had
Yeah.
on top of that Jeff Speakman and stuff. I still track some of those. I'll still look
Do
them
you?
up every once in a while. Oh yeah. But some really good people that were phenomenal in film and real classic martial artists.
Chuck Norris. Can't forget
Chuck
Chuck
Norris.
Norris.
You can't forget Chuck Norris, and I
Yeah.
don't know if you're familiar with Jeff Amata, but Jeff Amata has done over what 600 films from Book of Eli to Lethal Weapon movies back in the day, but
Wow.
just excellent martial artist and
Yeah.
stunt coordinator and choreographer.
Cool. Yeah, I think we were all influenced a little. So you get out of high school. You're looking for a job. Where does that take you?
Yeah, so I'm out of high school and trying to figure out life, and as most young kids, I worked everything from a detail shop and a car wash to I traveled off with a buddy of mine to the U.S. Virgin Islands and St. Thomas after Hurricane Hugo and spent time over there rebuilding. come back and
Cool.
uh, I said lived a different life. I was teaching martial arts and training and thought that was what I was going to do for a living. And yeah, I started working as a in a warehouse, running forklift and working shipping and receiving goods. And I thought, I'm not sure if this is what I'm cut out to do. And a buddy of mine says, hey, with your knowledge and your background, and they've trained with me before, they said, have you ever thought about going into military or law enforcement? And I had my family, so my family has a background in law enforcement. And I said, sure. I actually said, let me take a look at it. And
Right.
went in, and next thing you know, I was at a local sheriff's office.
Okay. And what did you start off at there?
I started off in the jail, so we everybody
Okay.
starts off, and I actually started off my first month was in central control, and waiting on a class to come up. So it's like you
Oh,
had to
okay.
wait for a class to come up. And the first year, almost 2 years, I was in direct supervision, working in inside corrections, a housing unit, and that was kind of my first, uh, I guess, first position in law enforcement. That's what I was doing.
What'd you think the first time the grill slammed and you're in there
That's
and
kind of disturbing, right?
yeah?
I'd got in trouble as a young kid for running too fast in a car one night, and I ended up getting picked up. My dad had to pick me up, but yeah, it's something you go in, you're like, I'm not sure if this is for me or not. But working in, I don't know if it was just direct supervision, but there was something about it. I started realizing it's made up, it's its own little community made up of different personalities, different people. You have you have some people that these are all they're not all bad guys. You always hear that, oh, were you in there with the bad guys? I'm like, well, I'm sure
Right.
there's some in there, but they're not all bad, and it is
Okay.
our community. So I started realizing it's good to start learning who you're dealing with. I thought that's where I really built a good foundation in communicating with people, talking to people,
Yeah.
interviewing people. So it was a time that I really treasured.
It's interesting. You talk about something, and there's something that I didn't experience. I worked in prisons, so I ran into people that I knew sometimes. But working in, a jail in your own community, you're having to handle people that you know from the street that you maybe grew up with.
Yeah.
How did you run into some of that?
Yeah, it's funny you say not as often. So I grew up
Mhm.
more towards Forsyth County, and that way I was in
Okay.
Gwinnett working, and as I'm working, I didn't really see many people that I knew, but on occasion I did have them in the housing unit. And remember, a lot of these were pre-trial. These
Yeah.
were not convicted at the time. You did have convicted sentenced inmates that were in there.
Right.
But yeah, I ran into them, and most of them I told them, I'm here to treat everybody fair, be respectful, and they were respectful for me. Didn't I don't think I had many that would try to push that and ask for favors. And if they did, I'd tell them,
Yeah.
hey, can't do that. Sorry about
Sure.
that, but we can't do it right now. And most of them understood. They had good
Yeah.
respect for what I was doing, and they knew if I did a good job, then I was keeping them safe as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I actually had to have one of mine transferred that I knew from school, and he's like, "Oh man, you're here. We can," and I'm like, "We? No, there's no we. This. We're on separate time here."
Yeah. Yeah, we are not yeah, we're working is what we're
That's
doing.
that's right. So, so you're in corrections, and apparently you told me you liked it. What were your plans at that time? Where did you? What was your goals in life? What were you thinking about at that time?
Again, I think it goes back to we just grew up maybe in a different time. I was thinking more of the Starsky and Hutch and the old days and Miami Vice, and I'm like, I first came in looking, I said, hey, where is the boat patrol? I want to go to the boat patrol unit, and we're close to Lake Lanier, and they're like, yeah, yeah, come on in, work with us. And I always say it was a recruiting thing. You get there and they're like, "Oh, there is no boat patrol. That's the next county over. That's Hall." But I really was wanting to try to do as much as I could in law enforcement and just get a full experience of everything. And really, I had thoughts in my head wanting to help people in the community and do more. So I had a desire to go to the road. So I ended up
Yeah.
actually leaving and working the domestic violence unit. And
Wow.
once I got transferred over there was this calling. I just really enjoyed. I know a lot of people, they either do or they don't, but I really enjoyed the jail. I liked working in the environment. I worked like the corrections team that we had and working with those guys. And I found myself over 23, right at 24 years. No matter where I went or what I did my overtime back there a lot. I would go back. I always trained with the guys. They trained with us. And I did it, and at the time, maybe it wasn't popular. I don't know if it is now, but it wasn't popular then. Everybody's like, "Why do you keep going to the jail?" And I'm like, "It's there's just something about it. It's
Yeah.
just it has its own draw to me, and it has a special place in my heart. Maybe that's where I started, and that's why I push to go to different events every year and try to host good quality classes for our corrections officers because
Yeah.
sometimes they get forgotten or left out, and
Hmm.
uh, and that's not the case. They're an amazing group of people, and once you start working with them and around them, it's good times.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I haven't heard of that before. So even while you were on patrol, they would let you go do corrections overtime?
Yep, you could go. If the jail was shorthanded,
Wow.
they would let us go work in the back. Now if you came from another agency and you did not have certain certifications or
Okay.
you're not used to the building, but no, you could go back there and work. And hours
That's cool.
mostly at the time I was on the road, I did more shakedown of housing units or any type of situations that came up with cell extractions or different things of that nature. I'd be called back in or call in or go in or assist. But hey, in a sheriff's office, you work at the leisure of the sheriff. So if you know he desires, you can help out wherever is needed, I guess.
Okay. It's so you start training, and you're absolutely right. Sometimes corrections is forgotten, and I've always found correctional officers to be very, I guess the word's hungry for good training, because sometimes we get the leftovers. I don't know how many times I was the only corrections guy in a law enforcement class,
Yeah.
and so when you get to train them, they seem very hungry. Did you find that? Well, and you were doing what, defensive tactics? Is that where you started in the training with them?
Yeah, I actually was working in the jail in a medical unit, and I put in for the CERT team. It's a, whatever name people want to call it, but it's a
Yep.
tactical team working in the jail. And I was told, they said, "Hey, you're not big enough. You're just not big enough. We're looking for these big guys." And at some point, I don't know how it came out in training or however, but they said, "Hey, this guy's got some type of skills,
Okay.
so we want you to come to the team." And then I came in, and then I started exploring what's real, what works, what's simplistic,
Mhm.
and what maybe is good in on Hollywood or in movies, but it's not good
Okay.
in real life. And I changed actually the term. I just started saying that we're doing more control tactics than is it offensive or defensive? I guess I don't know. Maybe it's just words, but I said we're more controlling people or learning to
Mhm.
control them with I'd say maybe the least amount of force to do an objective, to change
Right.
behavior, to get control. So that really that kicked off my passion for getting to go back, work with these guys, and I don't know. I just thought that they're a unique group of people and sometimes underappreciated. And you're right. There's many times I don't get either short-staffed or many different reasons they're not getting a lot of the training classes that maybe you see other officers get at times.
Yeah. I got to see both sides of the defensive tactics. State of Missouri, I worked there for 8+ years. They were very hands-on, control tactics, arm bars, and we did a lot of that. And then when I went to the Bureau of Prisons, it was all defensive stuff. If
Yeah,
somebody comes after you, how to do reverse spider crawls and kick with your feet, and nothing to get a hold of somebody. And
sure.
so I always had an advantage because I had been through classes where they taught you how to control someone. It's something that I see, and you tell me if you see the same thing. But I see the videos on TV and stuff, and they post corrections and police trying to get a hold of people, and we don't teach them enough because they're fighting on the ground, wrestling with somebody when they shouldn't be. They
Yeah,
should have already had a hold of an arm, done a little pain compliance, thrown whatever, and Do you see that a lot when you watch these videos and do after actions?
Yeah, there's a whole lot. I mean, I still do that with the job now, and you kind of touched on it. I'm with Pepperball, and I teach law enforcement across the
Okay.
country, and I still review a lot of videos, corrections on the road, just different places. But some of the ones recently, I've seen people who either maybe they're not confident in their skills, or maybe they're hesitating for
Yeah.
one reason or another, and at times, I look back on it because I was a guy who would go in there trying to teach, but we have to take ownership of that at some point and go, hey, we need to teach our officers better or give them better quality or bring them in. Now, granted, you have to have motivation yourself and want to do those things,
Sure.
but you see hesitation. You do see people who it seems things are missing, basic fundamentals, even with like an arm bar. The arm bar is not grabbing someone's arm and putting it on the ground if they are not going to do it. There may be a
Okay.
loosening, a timmy or strike to loosen the person up, make them pliable to actually be able to move them into a control situation. But those little pieces are missing sometimes in training.
Right.
And then they go, well, I don't know why it don't work. Well, there's a little
Yeah.
more to it than that.
It's not just getting a hold of the wrist.
It's not it, especially if
It,
somebody grab your wrist. I'm not going to be able to move you much. That's
right.
you have to loosen and make them pliable by performing some other type of technique or loosening blow or strike within
Yeah.
policy.
I do see more people these days, and you talked about you have to have the motivation to go learn and get good at this. It says there that, and I'm going to let you explain what is Renshi in Goshen Jiu-Jitsu or Jitsu,
The
but
Goshen
more people are
Ryu,
taking Jiu-Jitsu
yeah,
lately.
yeah, Goshen Ryu or a lot of the jiu-jitsu. Of course, there's a lot of either Japanese or Brazilian. But Rinchi is polished instructor. That's what that read. You reach a rank of what people consider a polished instructor.
Okay.
And I haven't been one, and I still don't. I'm not big about saying, "Hey, look at me, I'm a master of anything." I feel like I'm always learning,
Yeah.
and I'm always challenging myself, even to the point of, it's great to get a black belt. These are goals, and I was always told black belt is the beginning. That is the beginning of your lifelong journey. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what color my belt is when you're inside a jail or prison or on the street.
Yep.
So you really do have to put a lot of work into it, and it's a perishable skill. And I think to motivate people, however it may be, through monetary gain, hey, we'll pay you extra money or overtime or train or just have a good leader that will lead from the front, get in there and do it with you. But to get the guys in there, the training is really important because, again, what I learned 20, 30 years ago, if I haven't done it since then, is not going to be as fluid. Because everybody goes, how are you so fluid and fast? Well, it's repetition and practice, and it's working those basic fundamentals over and over.
Yeah. You may, and we may have already answered this, so just tell me if I'm uh, not getting it. But what do you think the biggest gap right now that you see? Because we travel all over the country, we get to go see correctional officers and police officers all over the country. What do you think the biggest gap right now in defensive tactics is? What are the agencies um, not spending time and money to put out there?
Yeah, some of the big gaps, I would say it's been changing over the last, it seems like it's a constant change at points. The last couple of years, I don't see as many, sometimes the quality of training's there. Some
Right.
agencies are right, jam up. I get there and I go, this is a really solid program, and they're putting a lot of time into it. The officers are training, and then you get others where you will go and I would say the time to put in, they may go once a year to a training or some
Yeah.
type of training class, and then that's all they're putting in. And then they go, why did this not work when I wanted it to work?
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to putting in. So I guess maybe the hole in that or the crack is the emphasis on it's not just something to do once or twice a year. You can go and maybe do your GCIC or you do certain certifications once or twice a year,
Yeah.
but it's perishable. it's got to be fluid, it's got to be natural, and you do have to put the time in. You got to put the
Yeah.
work in.
It's not, I was talking to Judy Simon Garrett. I had her on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and this book is Prisons and Beyond. And
Oh
this was
wow.
written by the first director of the Bureau of Prisons. And in here, and this is 1938, he talks about the need for officers to have jujitsu. And
Yes.
they were training it at the academy back then. So these aren't
Wow.
new thoughts,
No, no, they're
you
not.
know.
You're right. You're right. A lot of this it's been around. If you go back and look, there's just been so much that's been not just through law enforcement and corrections or street order, but in general, in a whole. Yeah, we've had so much knowledge, so much out there, so many things have came and went, and I also see knowledge base. You have
Okay.
older instructors and guys who are retiring out, and then you do have new things coming in. And I've signed up for many. I've taken many programs. I don't ever reach a level in my career I didn't where I was like, okay, I am the master. I am Zen, and I am good. I
All
always
right.
want to keep progressing. So a lot of the Gracie classes that they put on for law enforcement, I went to those. There's been, oh my goodness, anytime I could go to a DT instructor school, whether it's federally or state, or
Mhm.
at FLETC or, Forsyth, that's a place in Georgia, I would sign up to go. I just really started making it an obsession because you can always find little pieces, little nuggets that are great. And then you may find
Right.
something and go, that's really good, but I'm not going to be doing that. Maybe,
Right.
maybe that's not appropriate at my agency, but
Yeah.
I would think that there's a lot out there, Mike, and that's really interesting because you can find old judo footage as well of things they did, especially when you get the
Yeah.
PR-24s and the old batons from the day that
Sure.
some of those were not just for striking, they were actually used for control techniques.
Yeah. I I love your idea that you mentioned a while ago. If you hire on with some departments and you have a college degree, you get an extra few $1,000s a year for having a college degree. I think that's a great idea, and some administrators ought to take a look at that. If you have a black belt, if you have this knowledge, why wouldn't we give you an extra 500,000, whatever, dollars? That's a safer employee. That's an employee that can stop and can minimize use of force. It's not just about fighting for your life. It's about an employee who can minimize use of force. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think a great idea. There are, I'm not going to say different categories, and I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule. And one of the biggest things you probably have heard me say, I said there's more than one way of doing things, and I think there's more than one thought process, but let's explore this a little bit. You have a guy who I meet that's a third degree black belt in a martial art, and
Mm-hmm.
he is an excellent teacher, and he's got the basic fundamentals down. And you can tell what he was made for in life. He's good at passing that information to another,
Yeah.
but he's not a very good martial artist or fighter as far as you
Okay.
say is to do things. Or you'll have a good fighter, but maybe they're not a good passing on the knowledge. And then you do meet
Mm-hmm.
someone occasionally that's very well rounded of both. But yeah, it's I think it could be a benefit to departments to find individuals with backgrounds and go, hey, this guy he is a martial artist or he's had X amount of training, and is he willing or capable to convert it to our policy and our
Mm-hmm.
rules of
Right.
engagement? And two, can they teach that? Can you pass along that knowledge to others? Um, I've been to years ago, and I guess I could tell myself, but I went to a martial arts instructor, and the instructor was very rigid. Everything, and it's classical. Maybe I say classical martial arts or traditional, but
Mm-hmm.
we'll demonstrate the technique of whatever it is, and then you are to figure out a lot of application of how it
Yeah.
works. And then I find myself in with what we're doing, and again, we go back to corrections when I teach it, like the mock prison riots or the cell extraction course,
Sure.
breaking it down slowly, piece by piece, and explaining why are we doing this movement, why are we doing this technique, and then let's let's transition into it. Let's see it play out. So a benefit, I think for anyone that for an agency to have them come in with any type of training that would do that, maybe to, if not pay them more or an increase of pay to bring them into the agency, maybe even an encouragement to go, we would like to see you progress on a path to training division so that you
Right.
can start training our employees and our people. I went to many agencies and trained staff for judges on defensive tactics, control tactics, uh, and other agencies, other departments, and
Yeah.
where I come in and work with their team, and I tell them this is just another way of doing things.
Mm.
It's all been done before, in
Right.
one way or another, but this is just a different way.
Yeah. Let's talk about where we met was Pepperball. We're both master instructors in Pepperball,
Yeah,
and people would think Pepperball and defensive tactics, those are on opposite spectrums, but I've watched you teach. I think you know how I teach,
yeah,
and both ways it is about the safety of the officer. That's
yeah.
why we're so passionate about, and Pepperball is, that's what we believe. It absolutely sets the officer up to be able to do things in a safe way and to minimize use of force. What do you, go ahead and just tell me, why you joined Pepperball, what you think about it, and let's hear about that for a minute.
Yeah, the draw with Pepperball is we not only we used it in the jail, but it's being used in jails and prisons all over the country with success and on the road in the street. Um, I think a lot of it is it's very similar to what kids use on a paintball field, 10 to 12 foot-pounds of energy, very low, and it can be used for area saturation or alter the environment of a cell
Mm,
or car or vehicle or home or whatever you're in.
right.
So yeah, if we can if we can keep our officers safe and keep them healthy, that's been healthy here as
Yeah.
well as across the body. That's something good. And I've noticed, I'm not sure who said it, but I remember from years ago, they always say there's no winners in a fight. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh, I don't know what that means. Sure, there is. There's a winner and there's a loser. And it's, and then I started realizing if you're working, intake on a Saturday night and there's only two of you in pre-admissions and, you're bringing in 65 people come in the back door and, out of the 65, what, we'll say 5 or 10 of them, they want to fight. And then you're
Hmm.
fighting them. Well, that may be the only fight they're in maybe that month, maybe their whole life, but you're going to be doing that every night through your career. So those
Yeah.
little bumps when you drop your knee on that floor out, in those prisons and jails, or you fall and hit your elbow or hit your head or hit your hand, it takes a toll on you. So the more that we
Yeah.
could use like a tool like for me, Pepperball, and that's what I got into for us. And there, it's a lot. You can save the career of some officers and keep them extended.
Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot, and for the past couple of years, you go to agencies and they're guys with their knee, my knees messed up. Our backs are messed up, our necks are messed up, our
Hmm.
hands are messed up. So hopefully, if it's doing the same for our officers, is it also doing the same for the inmates or the suspect or whoever it is? Yeah, the more we can keep hands off people, uh, the better. The better the longer we're going to sustain, the longer we're going to
Yeah.
last.
Yeah.
And I know I hear a lot of everybody. There is always a time and a place to put hands on people, to use Pepperball or other things, or maybe simultaneous. But we do have to be smarter as officers because I'm not sure the injury rate. I'd love to see some data on that, but I'm sure the injury rate overall when people retire out it's a pretty high level. If you
Yeah.
we live a pretty dynamic lifestyle, and then the environment that we're in can take a toll on us after a while.
I'm I'm hopeful because I know, over my career when I started Missouri State Pen, we didn't use anything, no pepper spray or nothing. We popped the door, five guys ran in.
Yeah,
That was the way we did every use of force.
yeah,
And I did 1,000 use of forces over my career. But I just had a shoulder replacement, complete shoulder replacement, and
yeah.
that's what it was from a use of force. So I do think we've come a long ways. I don't think the officers get beat up quite as bad as we did back then.
No, and
Um,
yeah,
s- so I'm hoping,
Yeah.
as we get better at some of this other stuff, that there's even going to be a generation ahead who gets beat up very little and they only have to.
Yeah, I would hope
You know,
so because I
yeah.
think I've heard what's all the terms, the polyester pile and the dog pile or whatever. There's a lot, but when you're in it, and when I first started, that's when I realized I may not know everything, but there is something to teaching some of the stuff that I teach because I was in a cell. We were doing cell extraction, and same thing. We had a lot of officers go in. I'm on the ground, and next thing I know, I think it was an ERD back in the day. It was right. It was about the time that I first heard of taser and ERD, but the guy's like,
Yeah.
"I've got his leg," and I'm like, "That's my leg." And then somebody's punching someone else, and all the officers come out beat up and bruised up. Everybody is injured, and
Yeah.
you're like, This makes no sense. There's got to be a
including
better way."
including the inmate,
Oh,
which
including him.
the sheriff office is going to pay, liability or medical or whatever for. Yeah, yeah,
Sure.
you're right. Nobody wins.
Nobody wins. It's horrible.
Nobody
It's horrible
wins.
at the end of the day. So I have faith too, Mike. I think the generations we should be getting better. There are things that it's progression has came a long way. And I think that there are things that we can be doing to keep it going and keep
Yeah,
getting better and better. The blast and some of those other devices we're using in Pepperball, excellent tools
yeah.
to use.
Anything that we can do to not put hands on, and
Yeah,
Pepperball gives us multiple layers of that before we have to. And I have used, Pepperball. I've used area saturation, done direct impact, still didn't work, and you got to go through the door. But
sure.
by the time you go through the door, that inmate is feeling the effects of PAVA,
Yeah,
right? They felt the effects of getting hit with the direct impact. So they're not as willing to fight as they were if you'd have just popped that door when they were super mad.
yeah,
Uh, so it does, one of the main things, and I've heard you talk about this before, and through martial arts, was discipline. It taught you discipline, and you
yeah.
talk about discipline. What does that mean to you? What is discipline when it comes to use of force? When it comes to being a good officer?
That's something it's elusive, and I'm always striving for it, never mastering. But
Yeah,
no, discipline. It is true to a sense. I mean, I think martial arts, if you're looking at that angle, what it's kind of taught me is to not rush in, to be more patient, to try to think sometimes before we act, or
yeah,
make our actions deliberate when we do them. There's
yeah,
so many times people, and I've done it. I've done it when I'm young. You get excited, you run in, and you run in either to a bad situation or a time when you could have took your time. There was no need to rush.
yeah,
Uh, so some of the things that I throw out there is, and I hope I'm not too far off with it, but
yeah,
when I say that, off your question, but is to think about the discipline it takes to hold what you've got, wait for your backup, wait for someone else, assess the situation and see, do we need to do this immediately now? Or
yeah,
what are our priorities? Is our priorities really to go in here and get uh, the trash out of the window, blocking the outside, or is the problem maybe a medical or a psychological issue that's going on?
yeah,
All of that is a discipline, and it takes work because sometimes you focus in on those little details. And
yeah.
so, discipline in your life, again, I haven't mastered it by any means. I'm still working every day. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that martial arts helped a lot with that. It's kept me really grounded and focused throughout the years.
Yeah, I think you're dead on. I think especially when we're young, we feel this need to, well, I said do it, that means now.
Yeah,
And that's not always the safest way.
yeah,
So, yeah, I think you're dead on with that. So, while you were out there on patrol, I know you ran some teams. You were doing that for quite a bit. Tell me some of the challenges you ran into and what the teams you were running. Tell me about what that was.
yeah. So I guess I could start with the corrections team. I ended up when I retired out, I had a lot of the high liability teams under my belt or
Hmm.
under my direction. And of course, the corrections team is 24 hours, 7 days a week kind of operation.
Yeah,
That never stops. That consistently goes. Search and rescue was one that for the North Georgia mountains, I enjoyed training and wood navigation from outside to helping. I always felt there was something really good about trying to find missing hikers or
Yeah,
people. Um, I don't know. I thought that was a big need for that. I can see how that's a true mission of search and you're finding.
sure.
So, and plus you're outside. I do like the outdoors. But the other one would be domestic violence unit, working, serving temporary protection orders, child custodies, different things. Again, you're working with a lot of victims and trying to help families a lot, and the warrant service behind it. And from there, I had dignitary protection. So we, just for the agency I used to work with, we conducted many dignitary protection details over the years for some high profile individuals coming into our county,
Right,
which became a passion of mine, and I continue doing to this day. I still do some protection details and teach that as well.
right.
Fugitive unit, plain clothes, serving warrants. I love. I say I played in it. I could have stayed there forever. I think I love doing that. There is a passion between actual hunting people.
Yeah,
So other than that, I had those. I'm probably forgetting one, but the Beat the Heat program, participating in that, is a drag racing program to help kids try to get them off the streets and onto the track. I felt that was something I should try to give back because I was a little wild when I was young, and my driving was always like I like to go fast. So I said, hey, once I became an officer, I said, at times you look at how maybe you can't change the past, but you look at how can we help and how can we help
yeah.
other kids that may be dealing with the same thing or going through the same thing as you. And that was one of them. So I Beat the Heat program. I think that's about it. There may have been one or two, but
Yeah.
yeah, I really enjoyed different aspects of that for law enforcement. And I would say the domestic violence unit was probably one of my favorite units as well to work in. I felt there was a lot of reward out of that, and to help families. So yeah.
What would be your advice to new or experienced team leaders? How do you run a good team? What does
Oh
that
wow.
take?
Uh yeah, how do you run a good I would think really some good solid advice is figuring out your players, figuring out your people
Right.
and putting those pieces in the right place. So many times I've seen people who you're like, wow, this guy is he's doing X, whatever that may be. Could be very intellectual or doing one thing, and you go, this guy would be perfect for, writing an ops plan and planning things out, and he's detail oriented. And others, you may go, this guy, he's suited to be on entry. It's not
Hmm.
so. A lot of times I'm seeing, and I've done it before as a leader. I need this position filled, but I find a guy who's perfect at this, but I'm trying to force him into this other space.
Yeah.
So maybe just really be patient and learn your people, lead from the front. That's a big
Yeah.
thing in mine. Don't ask people to do stuff you're not willing to do. And it's good to have your people see you do it. If you go, hey guys, I'm not, there's many times I can tell you I was absolutely exhausted, give out. I guess the other one I didn't, or forgot to mention was mobile field force that I
Uh-huh.
was in charge of for a while. And I was saying, hey guys, I'm beat. And you don't have to go. You can all leave, but I'm going to go and continue and go do this. And then everybody's usually like, "Hey, LT, I'm with you. We're going to keep going too." And
Yeah.
that's a good feeling when you're leading people that everybody's tired as you are, or if not more so, and they still follow you.
Yeah.
And
I've s-
so, yeah,
I've
good
seen you do
example.
that. I've
Oh,
seen
thank
you
you. Yeah,
teaching classes all
yeah,
day, and you're just smoked. It's one class after, like at the mock or something, and you're just smoked, but you just keep going. You're right. You don't slow down. You're
no,
still in there putting hands on so that they can see how to do it. So yeah,
yeah,
I can see that you lead that way. The other thing that you mentioned was putting them in the right spot, and that's not just always for the team. Putting someone in a place where they're successful,
yeah,
yeah, that's important too. When a person's successful, they feel good about themselves. They're going to work harder. They're going to be a better team member. So, yeah, I think you hit that on the head there.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's all right. It's a lot to pour, and it's hard. You don't always feel like it, but you're right, Mike. When anytime me and you would train together, I watch you, and I see guys who I meet across the country and I'll say, hey, this is Mike Cantrell. Look what he's doing. And then I try, that raises the bar. And I go, you know what? I want to pour out everything I've got and everything I do. And I think a lot of times it shows when they do that. So
Yeah.
it's not just clicking a box or checking a box. It's really putting time in. And while we're here, we talk about leadership as something I strive to do and didn't do enough. Uh, and I try to now, at this point, is when people need to talk, if there's something going on,
Yeah.
take time to stop and be in that moment and listen to what they have to say. Because a lot of times they may be telling you, I'm struggling, or I need to do this, or my passion and goals are over here. And you can help not only get them in the right place, but, or if not, guide them to where, hey, you know what? I think you're more cut out to do this. Have you ever tried that? Well, no, I never have. Well, how
Yeah.
about try that? You're right. I love that. That's what I want to do. Really? And then you're kind of helping people, but you can if you're always on the phone. Give me a second. It's the phone, and you're running too fast.
Absolutely. Um, so I've asked you questions about being a leader because I've seen you lead, and I know that you've led those teams. The other thing you're really good at, and I said this at the beginning, is I love watching you teach. You are a good trainer. People get it when you're in the classroom. And so, what would be some, I don't know, tips, tricks? What would you tell a trainer? What do you try to do when you're teaching a class, and what would you tell others?
I think maybe some good tips is or could be to really try to connect to your students. There's one thing about giving the information, pushing the information out, and you do want to do that, but really to build a connection with each student. Um, and like you said, I've read a few books, and I started studying books when right before I ended law enforcement. I got into interview and interrogations, and I like reading body language and micro expressions. But there's a
Hmm.
lot said about making personal connections in class when you're teaching to try to get on a one-on-one level with. And you're like, well, I'm sorry, but I have 34 students. I get it. We're in there 8 hours. At
Yeah,
least try to get their names. People love it when you learn their names, when you interact with them, when uh, you really want to be not stale and not reading word for word off PowerPoint, but entertaining. You want
yeah,
to captivate them with what you're saying if you can. And I understand some things you can't. It's hard to do. But when you have an opportunity, let the passion that you have for what you're teaching, let people see it. Let them feel it. Let them see it. And it
yeah.
is it's not only captivating, it can be addictive. They'll be like, yeah, that's what I want to do too. What are you doing? I don't know, but let's go do it.
Let's
And
go
you're like,
do it.
yes. So that's I would say that try to really interact and don't be afraid to interact. Don't be afraid to tell stories and as long as it's relating to the subject matter to help them relate to whatever you're teaching.
Yeah. I think it is your passion that comes through. Yeah, I think that hits the nail on the head with that. People see that because you are passionate and you do care. Um, so what's going on with you now? What are you doing? What's keeping Joe busy now? I know
Oh
you
wow.
retired.
Yeah, I didn't
Um,
catch that. A little tired. Yeah, traveling. So full-time director of implementation with Pepperball. I'm like, yeah, what is that? That's a
uh,
fancy title, I guess. But it's I said, what am I doing? So we started out. We are having distributors in Pepperball. They will fund or set the X amount of launchers, let's say 25 to 40 launchers aside, and we run a program where we are pushing into patrol, daily
okay.
patrol for agencies. So we'll say, we've got these, and would you like to do 120 days? We'll come in there, do a user course. We're going to teach you how to use these launchers every 30 days. I'm going to be following back up. I'm going to be calling you. I'm going to be talking to you. We're going to help you with your policy, create policy, show you not Joe's way, not
Right.
Pepperball way, but how are agencies across this country, some of our top agencies, utilizing this tool, being
Hmm.
successful, and having the highest probability of success where their officers are safe, their suspects are safe. Let's find out the best way to do it and share that information. So we're
Yeah.
doing that with the agencies. And then as they're building, using this in the field, we are getting data back saying, okay, you're having success. And what about this? Why didn't this work? Nothing works 100% of the time. No technique or no tool. I feel that way.
Yeah.
And I think if people think about it, everything's great, but we don't need to rely on it. But we teach certain tactics like I'll say don't make a plan to fail, but have a plan of succession like an onion. We just keep rolling it back. I'll go from this to this.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe I'm using Pepperball. Maybe I'll fall back to Taser, then Canine, but it keeps falling back. It keeps rolling back with a plan. So we're teaching them how to be successful. The end of the time period, about 120 days, we reevaluate with their command staff and see do they want to continue the program or did it not work out for their agency? We have currently what, six, nine. We have nine going right now. One of
Okay.
them we're wrapping up, and they have had huge success. This is a new
Great.
program that we've just
Yeah.
started, and with that, I'm still working with the top 25 in the country. As far as the agencies with teaching their instructor armor courses, along with special weapons and tactics, some specialty stuff, corrections. Moundsville, West Virginia, going to be there again this
Oh
year
yeah.
for a cell extraction course.
Yeah.
And dignitary protection. I'm still conducting some, teaching a little bit, and on occasion to my special friends in North Carolina and a few other states, but I will go out and try to help them with some martial arts seminars when they do those. I'll be a special guest and come in and teach. But
Nice.
other than that, my wife and daughter keep me very busy with family stuff, which is at the highest priority. That's number one. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's a little touch of what I'm doing, but I'm traveling all over the country.
Yeah. Yeah. We've run into each other a couple of times. So maybe you want to talk, maybe you don't. I know you're working on a book. Is that getting closer?
Oh, you had to mention that, right? See that now the worlds collide. Now those worlds don't collide, Mike. I'm here for
Okay.
one thing or another.
I'll cut
No,
that part.
I would. Yeah, I'm working on a book. Uh, it is dedicated to my daughter Juliet, and it's a flower book. It's a kid's book. And I was
Yeah.
like, wait a minute. I have people that know me from different, forms. They're like, I can't believe this guy would write a children's book, and the others that know me from, yeah, there we go. See, right? They'll say,
Yeah.
"Oh, he's an artist. He does photography and books. I can't
Uh,
see you doing martial arts or anything." But it's the same. But we all have we're complicated humans, I
yeah.
think, when you look at it as far as we have different joys and different things. But yeah, I've got a book I'm still working out. Hopefully, it'll be out by the end of the year. Maybe I'm
Okay.
hoping with
Good.
help from some friends. Maybe we'll
Abs- Absolutely.
yeah, but we'll have it out, and so I'm doing that. I've got a few adventures in for. I've got some stuff going on a YouTube channel and different things like that. I've just started up,
Oh, nice.
and
So,
so yeah, I'm staying. I'm trying to stay not very busy, but it keeps me really busy.
yeah. Yeah. I understand completely. So, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, whether it's, I'll put the link to Pepperball, of course, and Pepperball is the sponsor of the Prison Officer Podcast. I'll put a link to Pepperball on there if somebody wants to get a hold of you there. Are you on LinkedIn or anything where you'd like people to reach out if they want to?
Yeah, of course. I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, you'll find me on there, and again, I think I put my email address in there as well. If anybody, needs anything in particular, I'll do my best. If I
Yeah.
don't have an answer, don't know, I will reach out to someone. I'll find out who will. I forgot, didn't realize Pepperball was helping out here and throwing in
Yeah.
on the podcast. So
Yeah.
that's awesome too. So good. We'll shout out for Pepperball. We're good.
Absolutely. Well, I'll get that stuff put in the show notes. Thank you so much for stopping by and being part of the podcast. I appreciate it. I'm glad we got it done.
Oh, God.
And
Yes.
I
No, it
look
was a
forward to next.
pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Mike. I really, really appreciate it, and
Yeah,
can't wait to watch more of your shows.
thank you. I look forward to next time we get to work together, too.
Yes.
See you, brother.
See you.